They say the most dangerous secrets in the monarchy aren't written down, they're whispered. And according to one royal historian with access no outsider should ever have, the Queen once pulled Catherine aside and delivered a message so precise, so chilling, it didn't feel like advice. It felt like a plan. A plan about Camilla's future. A plan about the crown's survival. And a plan that Catherine has never been allowed to repeat until now. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The historian doesn't speak like a man chasing attention. He speaks like someone who has carried a dangerous truth for too long, someone who knows that in royal circles silence is currency, and breaking it comes with a price. For years, he claims, he watched the monarchy do what it always does when it's cornered: smile in public, tighten control in private, and let time bury what people aren't supposed to remember. But this wasn't a rumor he picked up from gossip pages or overheard at a banquet. This was the kind of detail that only surfaces when you've stood close enough to the machine to hear it creak. He insists the Queen didn't just confide in Catherine as a grandmother would. She strategically chose her, like a guardian choosing the one person who could carry a message without turning it into chaos. And that distinction matters, because this wasn't sentimental. This wasn't a warm, soft exchange meant to reassure a young woman stepping into a demanding life. This was legacy work, calculated, deliberate, heavy with consequence. The Queen, in the historian's telling, treated that private moment the way she treated every critical decision of her reign, with foresight and discipline. A monarchy doesn't survive on affection alone. It survives on timing, perception, and control. And when the Queen pulled Catherine aside, it wasn't to offer comfort. It was to place a piece on the board where it needed to be before the final moves began. In that quiet triangle of power, the roles were already written. The Queen, as guardian of the institution, built from decades of restraint, someone who understood that the crown isn't a jewel, it's a burden that can crush you if you carry it wrong. Catherine as the future stability, the one the public could trust without being told to, the one who could endure the pressure without letting it show. And Camilla, the unresolved risk, the name that never quite settled into the monarchy's story without stirring something uneasy. The historian implies that the Queen knew exactly what each woman represented, and she knew the danger wasn't only scandal. The danger was fracture inside the family, inside the palace, and eventually, in the nation watching it all. That's why the historian describes the Queen's message as a warning disguised as guidance. Because the most powerful warnings don't sound like threats, they sound like preparation. They sound like strategy delivered in calm tones, like instructions that can be followed without admitting they exist. Catherine, he says, didn't receive a speech. She received a map, a set of boundaries, a quiet blueprint for what to do when the monarchy faces a choice it can't avoid. And if that's true, it means the Queen was thinking beyond the immediate moment, beyond the optics of today, beyond the comforting myth that time heals everything. She was shaping what would happen after she was gone. The historian's most unsettling claim is that the message wasn't simply about Camilla as a person, it was about who gets protected when the institution is threatened, who is shielded by tradition, and who is sacrificed to preserve the illusion of unity. In that kind of world, protection isn't kindness, it's power. Catherine wasn't being invited into confidence, she was being positioned inside a future conflict, told directly or indirectly that there may come a day when the crown demands clarity, not compromise. And once you've been given that kind of instruction, you don't return to normal life. You carry it. Quietly. Carefully. And you start seeing every smile, every courtesy, every public display of harmony as something else entirely. A performance built over pressure. And then there's the detail that makes this feel bigger than a private conversation. The palace, the historian claims, didn't treat this story like harmless gossip. It treated it like a threat, like something that needed to be buried, redirected, erased before it could form a narrative of its own. Because if the Queen truly spoke to Catherine in those terms, if she truly mapped out a future for Camilla that wasn't guaranteed, then everything people assume about loyalty, succession, and stability becomes uncertain. And uncertainty is the one thing the monarchy cannot afford to let the public taste for too long. But to understand why the Queen chose Catherine and what she truly feared, we have to go back to the moment the palace realized Camilla's future could become a crisis. For years, the monarchy tried to treat Camilla's role like a finished chapter, sealed, accepted, untouchable. But behind the scenes, it was never settled. There were meetings that ended too abruptly, advisors who stopped speaking to each other, smiles that didn't reach the eyes, and at the center of it all was one terrifying question the palace couldn't answer without starting a war. What happens when Camilla's position clashes with the future Queen's legitimacy? Because inside the palace, there are always two versions of the truth. The public one polished, rehearsed, safe, and the private one messy, strategic, fragile. Publicly, the monarchy presented Camilla as resolved history, a chapter turned, a decision finalized by time itself. But privately, that resolution never felt complete. It felt managed, carefully contained, like a crack disguised beneath fresh paint. The people who live and breathe the monarchy's survival understand something outsiders rarely do. Acceptance can be staged, but legitimacy has to be believed. And belief is unpredictable. It shifts, it breaks, it turns. That's how the two courts began to form, not with official declarations, but with quiet loyalties and subtle resistance. On one side were those who protected Camilla's position fiercely, arguing that any hesitation would reopen wounds the family couldn't afford to bleed from again. They believed stability came from insisting the story was settled, repeating it until the public stopped questioning it. On the other side were legacy loyalists, traditionalists, quiet strategists, people who didn't necessarily hate Camilla, but distrusted the implications of her rise. To them, the monarchy wasn't a love story, it was an institution. And institutions don't survive by following the heart, they survive by controlling the narrative before the narrative controls them. The Queen, in this world of carefully measured silence, saw further than everyone else. The tension wasn't just about Camilla's image, it was about timing, pressure, and what happens when multiple royal identities collide in the same era. The Queen didn't fear gossip. She had outlived gossip. What she feared was instability, an internal fracture that could widen slowly until it became impossible to contain. Because when the monarchy fractures, it doesn't always shatter with one loud scandal. Sometimes it breaks quietly, behind closed doors, through resentments and strategic leaks and alliances that turn cold at the worst possible time. That's why Camilla's role remained acceptable in public, complicated in private. Publicly, she could appear. She could be praised. She could stand where she was told to stand. But privately, there were conditions no one wrote down, because writing them down would admit they existed. There were delicate lines about how far influence could go, how visible power could become, how the monarchy could move forward without igniting backlash it wasn't prepared to survive. Every step felt like walking along a thin edge. Too much prominence could look like provocation, too little could look like rejection. Either way, risk. And then there was the concept that haunted everything: timed transitions. Controlled optics. The slow, deliberate choreography of monarchy survival. In the palace mind, timing can save you. Timing can also destroy you. A decision made too early becomes a fight. A decision made too late becomes a collapse. The Queen understood that better than anyone, and she understood something else. Too, Catherine was not just part of the future. She was the monarchy's long game. Trusted, steady. The kind of figure who could absorb pressure without cracking. The kind of figure the public could rally behind without being told to. That's where the private fear sharpened into something more specific. The Queen wasn't worried about one scandal splashing across headlines. She was worried about fracture, what happens when the institution tries to hold multiple competing truths at once. What happens when the future queen's legitimacy needs clarity, but the present arrangement demands loyalty? What happens when the monarchy's face to the world becomes divided by the very people meant to embody unity? And somewhere in the background, like a rumor with teeth, there was talk of something tangible, a document, a note, a sealed instruction that could settle the debate if it ever surfaced. But those closest to power knew the real force was never paperwork. It was words. Spoken words. Words delivered privately, remembered vividly, and carried like a weapon no one admits they're holding. And then, quietly, the Queen made her move by calling Catherine in, not for comfort, but for instruction. It wasn't announced. It wasn't scheduled the way royal life usually is. It was a summons, the kind that makes staff look away and corridors suddenly empty. The historian claims Catherine was brought in under an unspoken rule. No notes, no witnesses, no repeat. And when the Queen finally spoke, she didn't speak like a grandmother. She spoke like a monarch who knew exactly how history breaks and exactly how to prevent it. The way the historian tells it, everything about that day was designed to leave no fingerprints. Access tightened without explanation. Familiar faces disappeared from their usual posts. Even the most seasoned staff people trained to see everything and say nothing suddenly became careful with their eyes, careful with their timing, careful with where they stood. Because in royal life, you can always tell when something truly significant is happening, not by what is said, but by what is removed. Fewer people, fewer steps, fewer chances for a story to form. Catherine, he claims, didn't walk into a family moment. She walked into a controlled event, and control was the Queen's most underestimated weapon, not because she lacked emotion, but because she mastered it. The historian insists her restraint wasn't weakness or age or habit, it was deliberate power, sharpened over decades. When she chose silence, it wasn't because she had nothing to say. It was because timing mattered more than impulse. In that private audience, the Queen's calm wasn't comforting. It was commanding. It sent a clear message before a single word even landed. This conversation was not about feelings. It was about the crown's survival. Catherine felt it immediately. The historian says the internal tension that rises when you realize you've been invited into something you can't leave behind. Respect, of course, because the Queen's presence demanded it. But also fear, the quiet kind, the kind you feel when the room is too controlled and the stakes are too high to be spoken aloud. And responsibility heavy, sudden, almost physical, because Catherine understood the unspoken rules. Whatever was said here would not be repeated. Not to friends, not to staff, possibly not even to William, at least not right away. In that world, even love is sometimes delayed by protocol. The historian claims the Queen referenced what she called the monarchy's hinge point, the moment where history swings in one direction or another, and the smallest decision can become destiny. It wasn't delivered like drama, it was delivered like fact, as if the Queen could see the shape of the next decade and knew exactly where the pressure would hit first. And it wasn't hard to understand why. The monarchy was entering a modern era that no longer forgives ambiguity. People demand transparency, yet still punish vulnerability. They want tradition, yet reject its costs. And in that contradiction, the palace becomes most dangerous to itself. Before she gave the message, the historian suggests the Queen tested Catherine not with cruelty, not with suspicion, but with something more revealing, a question meant to measure instinct. Not "are you ready?" but something closer to "do you understand what you're protecting?" Catherine's answer, in his telling, wasn't loud, it wasn't rehearsed, it was steady, and that steadiness mattered, because it confirmed what the Queen needed to know. Catherine wasn't simply entering the family by marriage. She was being recognized for something rarer: trustworthiness under pressure. That's where the theme shifts, and the story becomes darker. Catherine wasn't chosen because she was popular. She wasn't chosen because she photographed well or played the role flawlessly. She was chosen because the Queen believed Catherine could carry a truth without weaponizing it, and could hold a boundary without announcing it. In the monarchy's private language, that is the highest form of loyalty, not blind obedience, but disciplined protection. The Queen didn't need someone to agree with her. She needed someone who could endure the consequences of knowing. And the historian insists that even before the Queen spoke the central words, Catherine could sense the shape of them, because the air in the room wasn't grieving. It was preparing. There was a feeling of finality, not only because time was running out, but because the Queen was making sure the future couldn't pretend it hadn't been warned. The message, he hints, was built with two blades, one edged with caution, the other with strategy. Not simply what to think, but what to do when the moment arrived. Not simply who to trust, but how to recognize the difference between loyalty and risk. It's the kind of conversation that doesn't end when the door closes. It follows you. It changes how you interpret every smile, every gesture, every introduction, every title spoken a little too confidently. And according to the historian, Catherine left that private audience with a new understanding of her role, not as a woman being welcomed into royalty, but as a future queen being handed a silent assignment. But what the Queen said next wasn't vague or symbolic, it was direct, and it placed Camilla at the center of a future storm. According to the historian, the Queen's voice didn't shake. It didn't soften. It landed like a verdict. She spoke about Camilla's future in a way that stunned Catherine, not because it was cruel, but because it was precise. No diplomacy, no cushioning. Just a royal truth delivered like a final instruction. If certain lines were crossed, the crown wouldn't simply be embarrassed, it would be permanently damaged. And Catherine understood instantly. This wasn't advice, it was a warning. The historian claims the Queen didn't circle the subject or hide behind polite vagueness. She went straight to it, as though time had stripped away the need for comfort. And then came what he calls the three boundaries: not written rules, not official protocol, but limits spoken with the kind of authority that makes them feel permanent. The first boundary wasn't about personality. It was about power. The Queen, he says, warned that Camilla's influence must never appear to outrank the monarchy's future stability, because the public can tolerate complicated history, but it won't tolerate feeling manipulated. The second boundary wasn't about titles. It was about visibility, how far Camilla could be placed in the public's line of sight before old resentments were reignited. And the third boundary was the most unsettling of all. The Queen allegedly implied that Camilla's position was conditional, not guaranteed, and that if certain pressures rose, the palace would have to choose survival over sentiment. Catherine, in that moment, wasn't being asked to like this truth. She was being asked to remember it. The Queen's message, as the historian tells it, carried a brutal clarity. Optics are survival, but legitimacy is power. Optics can be managed with statements and ceremonies and strategic appearances. Legitimacy, once questioned, is harder to rebuild than stone. The Queen wasn't teaching Catherine how to smile. She was teaching her how to endure, how to recognize when harmony is real, and when it's merely maintained by fear of consequences. And beneath every word was an even darker implication. If the monarchy ever faced a public breaking point, it wouldn't be kindness that decided the outcome. It would be necessity. Then the historian claims the Queen hinted at timing sequence like a chess player thinking 5 moves ahead, not in a way that sounded cold, but in a way that sounded inevitable. Certain transitions had to happen in the right order, he suggests, or the institution would invite chaos. Certain decisions had to be made quietly, carefully, and at the right moment, because the wrong moment could tear the family apart. And Catherine listened, not as a passive recipient, but as someone who suddenly realized she was being handed a role that wasn't ceremonial. It was strategic. The emotional twist in this story is that Catherine, according to the historian, was burdened with carrying the message alone. No witnesses, no notes, no proof, only memory. And memory is both powerful and dangerous, because it can't be audited or denied without turning into war. That's what makes it such a royal weapon. A truth that exists only inside a chosen person. And it's why the Queen's instruction felt less like comfort and more like a sealed assignment Catherine never asked for. In that room, she wasn't simply receiving information, she was being positioned as the one who would understand what to do when the pressure reached its peak. The historian says Catherine finally asked a question, not loud, not confrontational, but sharp in its simplicity. Something like, what happens if the palace refuses to act when the lines are crossed? And the Queen's answer, he claims, was chilling because it wasn't emotional. It was final. A reminder that the monarchy survives only when someone is willing to make the hard choice before the public forces it. A reminder that refusing to choose is still a choice, one that invites collapse. And then came the foreshadowing that Catherine would never forget. One day, you will have to choose. Some secrets don't scream. They sit inside you, heavy, silent, changing how you look at everyone around you. After that meeting, the historian says Catherine's world shifted. Not outwardly, no dramatic displays, no public cracks. But privately, a recalibration, a new caution, a new distance. Because she wasn't just holding a personal confidence, she was holding a royal instruction that could turn her into a target if it ever surfaced. Her composure became a mask with extra weight behind it. Every public smile now carried an invisible calculation, how to appear unchanged while feeling fundamentally altered. The historian suggests she struggled with whether to tell William and when, because timing mattered not just for marriage, but for monarchy. Tell him too soon, and the secret becomes shared, harder to control, easier to leak. Tell him too late, and she risks being alone with something that could rewrite the family's future. So she measured her words, her movements, her trust, not because she became cold, but because she became aware. And people noticed without being able to prove anything. Subtle shifts, the historian claims. A slightly stronger caution around certain conversations. A different kind of silence in certain company. Not distance meant to insult, but distance meant to protect. Because if Camilla ever sensed the content of the Queen's message, Catherine wouldn't just be a future queen. She would become an obstacle. The enemy. The woman blamed for a truth she didn't create, but was forced to carry. That fear, quiet but constant, would make anyone careful. It created a private strain, loyalty to the Queen's legacy on one side, the fragile unity of the family on the other. Catherine couldn't openly defend a message she wasn't allowed to quote. She couldn't confront a storm that hadn't broken publicly yet. So, as the historian puts it, she began planning without appearing to. Not plotting, planning. Preparing for a future confrontation without announcing that she expected it. Because that's how royal survival works. You anticipate the earthquake while smiling through the dinner. And that's why the most ominous part isn't that Catherine held the secret. It's that secrets inside the palace rarely stay where they're placed. Pressure finds cracks. Ambition finds opportunities. And the historian's final warning is the one that changes everything. The secret won't leak because Catherine wants it to. It will leak because someone else decides the moment has come. Because in the palace, secrets don't stay buried forever. And soon, the first crack appeared. It started as a rumor, one phrase floating through the wrong circles. Then it hardened into a headline-shaped narrative. The Queen said something about Camilla, and Catherine knows what it was. The palace tried to suffocate it, but the story moved faster than protocol. The historian claims this wasn't an accident, it was a pressure release, a calculated strike, or a betrayal from inside the walls. And once it escaped, there was no putting it back. At first, it didn't even look dangerous. Just a fragment passed quietly, repeated carelessly, dressed up as speculation. But the palace is built to recognize threat in the smallest details, and this detail was too sharp to be random. Someone, somewhere, had heard enough to shape a narrative. And once the narrative existed, it didn't matter whether the original leak was precise or imperfect. It only mattered that it felt real. The historian insists that's how the monarchy gets trapped, not by facts but by belief. A single phrase can become a weapon if the public wants it to be true. The origin became the first mystery, and the most poisonous one. Was it a staff member who overheard something never meant to be carried beyond a door? An advisor with a private agenda? A rival faction trying to weaken a position before it hardened into permanence? Or most chilling of all, someone acting on what they believed was the Queen's true intention, leaking just enough to force the palace toward the outcome she supposedly wanted. Because in the monarchy, leaks are rarely just leaks. They're signals. They're threats. They're pressure tactics disguised as accidents. And the media did what it always does when it senses royal blood in the water. It amplified. It turned uncertainty into certainty, suggestion into story, and story into a referendum. Panels debated it like a verdict was needed. Commentators demanded answers with a hunger that felt less like journalism and more like judgment. The public reaction swung fast curiosity first, then anger. Not just anger at Camilla, not just anger at Charles, but anger at secrecy itself. People don't like being managed, and the monarchy's greatest instinct is management. The harder the palace tried to maintain control, the more it confirmed what everyone suspected: there was something here worth hiding. Inside the palace, communication teams scrambled in every direction at once: deny, stay silent, distract, move the spotlight, bury the phrase under new headlines. But every option carried danger. Deny it too strongly, and you look guilty. Stay silent, and you look exposed. Distract, and you look manipulative. And while the palace debated strategy, Catherine became a silent focal point, watched, analysed, blamed without ever saying a word. Her composure, once seen as strength, now became evidence to those hungry for confirmation. People began reading meaning into everything: her absence, her presence, her expression, her silence. The more she said nothing, the louder the world spoke for her. And then Camilla's name became the centre of gravity. Not as a person, but as a symbol. Her future role stopped being a royal detail and became the controversy itself, because a monarchy can survive scandal. But it struggles when legitimacy is questioned. That was Camilla's real fear, according to the historian. Not criticism, not bad headlines, legitimacy. The idea that the Queen's final message, real or rumoured, had placed an invisible asterisk beside Camilla's position, an asterisk the public could now see and couldn't stop staring at. This wasn't the kind of scrutiny Camilla could outlast with silence. This wasn't gossip. This was the Queen's shadow falling directly over her future. The historian describes a shift behind closed doors: urgency, defensiveness, and fear masked as confidence. Camilla may have held her posture in public, but privately the pressure would have been suffocating, because silence, usually her shield, now looked like avoidance. Every day the palace didn't shut the story down, it grew teeth. Every day it remained unanswered, it became harder to control. And Charles? For the first time, he isn't just fighting the public, he's fighting the implication that his own mother saw something in Camilla's future that she didn't trust, and that Catherine was warned for a reason. He's cornered in the most brutal way, forced to defend Camilla without making the Queen look wrong, forced to protect the crown without sacrificing the woman beside him. Advisors push him in opposite directions, isolating him further, turning every discussion into a power struggle disguised as what's best for the monarchy. And in that chaos, suspicion starts to circle Catherine again, not because she spoke, but because she didn't. Because in the palace, knowledge is treated like a threat. The historian warns that this is the moment when desperation breeds decisions, when fear creates plans, When someone decides the only way to end a controversy is to force an outcome, secure Camilla's future permanently, lock her position in place, make it irreversible before the storm can reshape it. But that kind of move doesn't bring peace. It provokes backlash. It exposes fractures. And it pushes Charles toward the one decision he can't avoid, no matter how long he tries to delay it. And as the world demanded answers, the tension inside the marriage at the center of the crown began to splinter. But the palace didn't realize the biggest fallout wasn't the headlines, it was the silent shift in power preparing to happen next. Now the monarchy stands at a dangerous crossroads, and Catherine is no longer just watching history. She's inside it. The historian's claim is simple but explosive. The Queen didn't merely confide in Catherine, she positioned her. Because the future of Camilla isn't just about titles or optics, it's about whether the crown can survive another internal civil war. And the terrifying part is this: the Queen's final message may have been a blueprint for what Catherine must do when the moment arrives. Because when a monarchy begins to wobble, it doesn't wobble in public first. It wobbles in hearts, in corridors, in quiet decisions that never make headlines until it's too late to reverse them. And Catherine, according to the historian, has been forced into a role far heavier than future Queen. She has become the living bridge between the Queen's legacy and the monarchy's next identity. That's why this moment feels morally complex, because there is no clean victory here. Only costs, only consequences, only choices that will hurt someone, no matter how carefully they're made. On one side is duty to the crown, cold, ancient and unforgiving. The duty that demands unity even when the family is splintering. The duty that demands control even when the public refuses to be controlled. The duty that whispers one brutal truth: the institution must survive, even if individuals don't. On the other side is personal loyalty to family unity, human, fragile and emotionally real. Catherine isn't just a symbol. She's a wife, a mother. A woman who knows that one wrong move could ignite a private war that spills into public ruin. And yet she's also the one person the Queen allegedly trusted enough to carry a message designed for exactly this kind of storm. The Queen's final words have become a living weight, not a memory, not a sentiment, but a pressure that moves through every conversation now, even when it's not spoken. Because when the Queen leaves behind a warning, it doesn't stay in the past. It drifts into the future like fog, shaping decisions without announcing itself. Catherine can feel it in the way people watch her more closely, the way silence tightens around certain topics, the way support becomes conditional, and alliances feel more cautious than warm. It's as if the palace has entered a new era, where everyone is pretending nothing has changed, while acting like everything has. And the risk of public division is the knife at the center of this. If Catherine appears to step toward protecting the Queen's legacy too openly, it will be framed as a power move, a cold calculation, a signal that Camilla's position is being challenged. If she appears to stand back, choosing peace over confrontation, it will be framed as weakness, or worse, complicity. In a modern world, the monarchy doesn't get unlimited time to stabilize its story. Trust is limited, patience is thinner, public sympathy flips quickly, and once doubt spreads, it's hard to contain. The monarchy survives on belief, and belief is the first thing the internet tears apart. That fragility makes every decision feel amplified, every gesture feel interpreted. A step forward becomes a statement, a silence becomes a confession. And the long-term consequences stretch beyond personalities and headlines. They reach into stability and succession, into internal legitimacy, into the unspoken question that always lurks beneath royal drama: who truly holds power when tradition collides with reality? Because if the public begins to sense a hidden civil war inside the palace, the institution doesn't simply face embarrassment, it faces erosion. The slow, unstoppable kind that doesn't collapse in one day, but unravels over years. The historian hints Catherine may already be preparing her quiet answer, not with dramatic gestures, not with public confrontations, but with strategy disguised as calm. The kind of preparation that looks like routine until the moment arrives and you realize the pieces were being arranged all along. If the Queen's message was a blueprint, then Catherine's restraint may not be hesitation. It may be discipline. It may be timing. It may be the understanding that the only way to win inside a monarchy is to make your moves so cleanly that it looks like inevitability, not ambition. And that is what makes the ending so unsettling, because the historian claims there is one final detail he hasn't revealed yet, something that would change how everyone interprets the Queen's intent, Catherine's silence, and Camilla's future. Not a rumour, not a guess, a specific piece of information that explains why the Queen chose Catherine in the first place, and why the palace has worked so hard to keep the full story buried. If that detail ever surfaces, it won't just spark debate, it will force a reckoning. And as the echoes of what the Queen told Catherine refuse to fade, one truth remains: this story is far from over. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.